Now, if I had good sense, I would just read this nice speech.
But we love you anyway.
Sense is overrated.
Sit down, but I just don't think I can do it.
Let it go. Let it go.
I just want to say to my fellow honorees, Tony of Uber, in her absence, Dr. Christine, Blasey Ford, and of course, Indira, I'm going to forgive you for coming to Capitol Hill on the day of that testimony and not seeking me out, because I was traumatized. I had to go to the doctor after listening to her testimony. And although you think that you have moved from victim to victory, this is a very, very traumatic experience. Sexual violence is, it is something that you constantly need healing for. So I just want to start out by thanking RALIANCE, but I also want to thank all of the advocates who are here tonight to share in this healing process, because healing is a continuous thing. And let me tell you, you know, when I was 5 years old being raped, I thought I was alone. When I was in high school and was raped, I thought I was alone. You know, when I was a college student and was raped, I thought I was alone. When I was an adult, being beaten up, tortured, waterboarded, and raped, I thought I was alone. And the shock of discovery that I almost knew no women who hadn't been victims of domestic violence and or sexual violence was really stunning to me. And those data and those statistics are being borne out. So I am holding RALIANCE to your vow to end domestic violence in this generation. I just can't wait to have domestic violence, sexual violence go the way of polio or smallpox. Rare, if never. But you know, I think that the importance of the work that you all are doing is to bring the little girls like the Gwens of the world and the Dr. Fords out of the shadows. Because these perpetrators, they absolutely depend on silence and inaction to continue their craft. I remember, you know, being a legislator in the 90s, in like 1992, and sitting there listening to the debate, and we had charter schools and choice schools with very, very few restrictions about what kinds of protocols these non-public schools had taken. We had a quote-unquote principal, CEO of the school, who was a rapist, and had billed the superintendent of schools for reimbursement. And I just sat there trembling and shaking and saying that this just cannot be. This cannot be. And before I knew it, I was on my feet, telling my own story, coming out from behind a veil of silence, a curtain that I had drawn in my own spirit and hindering my own progress. And I guess, what is the point in being a legislator if you can't speak truth to power? If you can't legislate and protect people and use your craft for the public good? And that is why I was so happy today that we gave yet another honor to the late great Congresswoman Louise McIntosh Slaughter, who introduced the Violence Against Women in 1994, about the same time that I was standing on the floor of the state senate in Wisconsin, sharing my journey from victim to victory. That was a moment for me. But I tell you, the Violence Against Women Act it was not easy pulling it over that finish line, because the support for these perpetrators, as we know from the Christine Blasey Ford hearing, is very, very strong. The network of male privilege to beat us, to rape us, is stronger, which is why our ties have to be strong. And we have got to have allies that who are with us all of the way. So I was a lead sponsor trying to expand VAWA to include women, and based on the best practices of people who work in the field, the Indiras of the world, the police, the judges, the courts, they shared with us that there was no protection for LGBTQ women. You know, somehow if you were a lesbian and you got raped or beat up, that just didn't count.
Right.
Well, you shouldn't have been a lesbian, you know, whatever. I wasn't a lesbian. It didn't keep me from being beaten and raped and harmed. It doesn't keep women from being killed every day.
Yes.
We wanted to expand it to protect women who were immigrants. Oh, you're an immigrant? I can hold you hostage by your papers. I can do anything I want to you because you cannot go tell anyone. And Native American women. Why were Native American women 6-7 times as likely to be beaten and raped? Why? Because our laws protected non-Indian men, white men, from being prosecuted. We had testimonies of white men who were married to Native women. They beat her up, rape her, anything, and they would call the police themselves, knowing that Barney Pfeiffer couldn't do a thing to them. Nor could the tribal authorities do anything. They didn't have authority over them. And that is the same battle we're fighting today. We got those provisions in despite their resistance. And I'll tell you, after fighting and losing that reauthorization for 2 years and coming back, I stood on the floor and my sojourner truth welled up in my soul. Hey, these women! I'll tell you, and right now, my senator, not Tammy Baldwin, people, the other one, Ron Johnson is trying to have, Republican is trying to have my provisions that protect Native women repealed, because we don't want white men to be held accountable. People who just will drag a Native woman back onto the reservation, knowing that they can do this with impunity. And we are saying, there's too many of us that are in this fight. We're never going to let this happen again. And so, our cause is just, our cause is right, and we're going to keep on keeping on. Because we are going to end this scourge in your generation. I'll be 68 the rest of this month, so in a couple of weeks. So I'm holding it. I'm holding you responsible for it. I'll tell you, when I sat there as a state senator, one, to stay in my comfort zone, one, to keep my personal secret. When I thought about all of the, I didn't think about all of the women who might have benefited from my coming out with my story. I thought about my own comfort. And before I knew it, I was up on my feet. It was just, it was organic. And I thought of this poem, or some version of this poem, by Joseph A. Walker. And it goes a little bit something like this. Lord, ooh, I ain't no ways tired. I'm dedicating this to you, Reliance. And my soul seeks not to be weary. I just tell you, I just want a muscle-bound spirit. I want a muscle-bound soul. Because, Lord, I ain't no ways tired. I feel like just dancing in the valley of the shadow of death. Because, Lord, I ain't no ways tired. Keep on struggling, sisters. Thank you so much for this award.